Hi, folks. It's been a intense week. Carnival starts at the end of February this year and it goes till today, March 5th. It's like a whole week of party everywhere. Most towns, big towns in Portugal have celebrations and parties and events and music and so on. It seems like Portugal really likes to have festivals. Festivais. They like it, and it's fun. The thing I love about Portugal is, it's transgenerational. People get together, old and young, and enjoy themselves. Nice families out and about. People are affectionate and loving. You don't feel feel threatened at all here. It's very safe. I mean, I wouldn't say that every parts of Lisboa or Porto or some big city is safe in Portugal, but in general, you feel really safe here, especially in the smaller towns. People know each other. They look out for each other. You know, it's easygoing. Yeah, they have theft and things. A while back, the schools in Caldas da Rainha got broken into and stuff was stolen. Things happen like that. But in general, it's really very safe and enjoyable and relaxing here. And the carnival parade was fun. I just like watching all the people having a good time. It's nothing fancy. It doesn't have the production values that American events have. Big spectacles with tens of $1 million budgets and so on. Just amazing, They're modest, but they're fun, and everybody enjoys themselves, and I love seeing that. So I'm going to edit a video today and put that up. Just some clips I shot of everybody having a good time. I saw Donald Trump address Congress, and, for me, that's all really grotesque. But, political parties are full of it. They all take their marching orders from the same master. And in the United States, that's big business, and I'm not saying big business is bad for everything in the universe, but modernity has problems, and we're so energy and resource dependent that we're going to have to pay dearly for overshoot. But anyway, Donald Trump doesn't believe in that. Republicans and conservatives don't believe in that. I saw a Heritage short video on YouTube where they were trotting out the same old BS about don't allow these emotional responses to climate or environmental issues. That's just, causing trouble and misinformation. It's really not as bad as you think, and all of that kind of thing. So they've been saying that for decades, and people want to believe that because they don't want to believe that anything threatens them, including our socioeconomic system and banking system and all that kind of stuff. As long as it's kind of working, people don't want to know. Learning the details and the facts of the matter and how things work, paying attention to laws of nature and things like that, or any kind of complex systems, is too much of an ask. It's too taxing on people. And so, just believing whatever we're told is a lot easier. And we want to believe things are going to work out. No matter how many times we learn from, prime mortgage crises and things like that, it doesn't matter. We forget very quickly. So Trump is the peace president. He's trying to get a deal to stop the war in Ukraine. I personally think that's a good idea. I don't think Europe has the capacity, industrial capacity or manpower to fight a war of attrition right now. I think it's a waste. But, American leadership doesn't think climate is a problem or any of these other issues surrounding resources. Indica put out a piece called "The Two Engines of America, Part One: Colonization," and in the first paragraph, he says, America, like their flagship Boeing 737 MAX, has two engines of growth. As a colony, America requires constant immigration to suck in labor, i.e. colonization. As an empire, they require global immiseration to suck in labor resources, i.e. imperialism. America's two engines of growth are colonization and imperialism, but now it's sucking bald eagles into both and going down in flames. Yeah, labor arbitrage is a big deal, which is why China got a big head start from the 1980s, because corporations liked the cheap labor, and China became the factory for everything. One thing he left out in that paragraph, anyway, I haven't read all the two articles, but it's wealthy countries require more energy and more materials because we consume more. That's not hard to fathom, not difficult to imagine. And it's true, even in Portugal, and I've been to Africa, I've been to India and China, other parts of the world, where people consume less. They still have a nice life with their friends and family, but they just don't consume as many consumer goods. And some people would say, oh, that's terribly sad. But we do live in a finite ecosystem. We depend on life to live. Without it, the entropy gets naughty and nasty. But we have this inertia in our socioeconomic ideas and politics. All the people in Congress, they're just self-congratulatory careerists who are getting paid by the same people, and they have the same incentives driving them. All of this stuff about America isn't woke anymore, and we renamed the Gulf of Mexico to the Gulf of America, none of that matters, really. It's like worse than forest for the trees kind of fallacious reasoning. It's just brain dead, stupid. And it's tragic because we have deeper issues, and they are structural, and they are systemic, and they are complex, and they do require attention. And some of these challenges are global challenges, so we have to address them. Nothing, he says, has anything to do with that. You're the peace president on one hand, and then immediately you circumvent Congress and send another $4 billion to Israel to prosecute its warfare. And one thing you can get out of this Ukraine thing, what happened in the White House with Zelensky, is that America's a very powerful country. It wields a great deal of power, no matter who is president. It's a wealthy, powerful nation and has a great deal of influence in the world. So if America wanted to stop a war or prevent a war, it could. It could do it. If they wanted to stop the killing in the Middle East, they could do it. But they don't. And when they do, it's on transactional terms, our terms, or, we just leave. We didn't get quite what we wanted, we just bug out. As long as the markets are protected, all the credit default obligations and swaps and derivatives and market machinations to keep the stock market going. When the stock market goes down like it did after the Zelensky thing, that's just an opportunity for people who have money to buy low and sell high again. I couldn't afford that stock a month ago. Now I think I'll buy a few shares, and then watch them pump it up again. And the whole crypto thing, it's just ridiculous. Making taxpayers pay for crypto, I mean, this is way beyond fiat money or anything like that, because it's totally unregulated. There's nothing behind it, not even trust. And the pump and dump schemes are notorious. Anyway, it's just not an answer for anything. Network states, little city states dotted around the world, that's not going to happen. Game B, little communities, not going to happen. Not at this scale, where so much energy and materials are required just to keep the world running, right? It's hard to understand this, and I can't lecture on it because there's so many elements to it, so many domains involved with it, including sociology, anthropology, psychology, and things like that. Culture, it's a hard question, consciousness, all these things. But if you just do the math and look at the science and aren't afraid of scientism, which is just what ignorant people say when they don't want to do the math, or when it goes against their dogmatic beliefs that they don't want to examine at all. And they don't care about logic, and they don't care about cognitive biases or any of that stuff. They just want to be a good standing member in a community that believes what they believe and gain their status by demonstrating their belief in the belief. It's shallow and unfortunate because at the end of the day, the bill's coming due, and it's coming due fast. And what the Republicans are doing now is a long-standing project that's been going on for a long, long time among a certain kind of elite. Again, you're moving the budget item. I'm moving money from this line into another line that benefits me. Both parties are corrupt, but some are very narrow ideologically, almost to, I could describe them as magical thinkers, just completely oblivious to any lines of evidence, that are provable, demonstrable, repeatable, falsifiable, a la Karl Popper, whatever criteria you want for epistemic rigor or anything like that. They don't care. They don't follow it. It doesn't benefit them. It doesn't make them wealthier. It doesn't extend their career or gain them status, so they don't care. These guys are all patting each other on the back and cheering. And of course, it's typical. It's like one side, President Trump says something and half of the Congress stands up and cheers. And if the Democrats just sit there. If the Democrats were any good, the Republicans wouldn't be there cheering. It'd be the Democrats. And the Republicans would be sitting there like this. And when some senator says something out of order, the Republican side just starts chanting USA, USA. It's like, all you have to do is chant USA. Everything will be fine. You just have to be my kind of patriot, believing what I want to believe. And they're mostly fantastical. The level of delusion in these people is surreal. But look at them. They're all beside themselves with joy. Vance is joking with the Speaker of the House, and they're just having a ball, It's a big celebration for them. And then, as you know, Trump likes to exaggerate, so any number he says is completely BS. And lots of just blatant lies about things. But it doesn't matter because it suits the narrative, And this kind of narrative capital is extremely powerful. It's not goods and services. It's not real wealth. It's not assets per se, whether they're material or in the form of contracts, stocks and bonds or whatever, mortgages, debt. It's this narrative capital where you flood the zone every single second of the day with these false narratives, these stories that are completely untrue and don't represent reality whatsoever. I just beg people to embrace reality and truth. But it's hard. Even people who do embrace it and make great efforts to write books about embracing it and whatever, also are biased. Everybody is. So you need institutions and cultures where people are willing to question one another and hold one another accountable for what they say and believe, and force people to prove that their ideas are rigorous and effective, efficacious, whatever you want to say. It's like, this stuff works. Look, I'll show you. We can repeat the experiment. You can critique it. It's open source. Go ahead, have at it. You do the experiment. You rewrite the paper. Let's see if it holds up to scrutiny. And if it does, we'll start to make plans and move forward and so on. I always thought about financialization, and in particular since around 2001 or something. But after 2008, it's just a nightmare. And so much has been written about all these things. And so much good research and good science has been done. And nobody wants to look at it. So nobody's going to do anything. We're going to believe that everything's exciting. If things get worse, it'll just shift to another clique that is marching to the same delusionary ideological dogmatism as the last one, only slightly different. With all these red herrings, you're chasing around the little laser pointer all day long while the oceans die. It's absurd. But so mass layoffs, the breakfast of billionaires. Les Leopold, I was reading his saying, labor, jobs, healthcare, infrastructure, these kinds of things. Nobody talks about it. They're all talking about woke stuff, and men aren't going to play on women's teams anymore, and this kind of stuff. What does that really have to do with anything? It's great on podcasts. It's a good rage machine, rage story, get people pissed off. But it's trivial. It's trivial, meaningless compared to what we're really facing in the world, our species, and our country. Then they have Ben Norton talks about Javier Milei destroying Argentina's economy, and there's a picture of Trump and Milei and Elon Musk, and they're so happy. They're having such a good time vandalizing everything. These imperfect institutions that need reform or restructuring or new ideas. But instead of any of that, we're going to wreck it because in the midst of chaos, we can make more money, gain more control and power. And they need, these powerful groups and corporations, institutions, and leaders. They want access to materials. So the thing that Indica didn't mention was that a lot of the materials used to be in these colonies, right? So Portugal and France and Belgium and the UK and Netherlands and so on, Germany, all had colonies, right? And they were extracting wealth from the colonies and labor, wealth in the form of labor. You have cheap labor, you make more profit. If you can pay slaves in Cuba a glass of water and a meal of grain or whatever, and they'll work all day for you because they have no other choice. And of course, if any of these people fight back, whether they're Native American groups or, whoever, African slave rebellions or whatever, we label them savages and terrorists. And, there's just that frontiersman book I was reading. There's just a constant wave after wave of immigrants coming from Europe and going out west. And they're bumping into these populations of Native Americans. And of course, conflict, it's just bound to happen. But it's wave after wave of immigration that comes to plant the flag and say, this is ours now. So you go to the sun and you say, I claim the sun for my nation, for my corporation, or whatever. And what an innovation, the Knights Templars decide that while they're protecting these wealthy people's gold, they never ask for more than 10% of it at any time. So they start to lend out, money on gold contracts. Pretty soon, all people want are the little pieces of paper that they can trade for gold because it's so much more convenient, right? Pretty soon, we're going to have all the micropayments just coming out of our phone, and for one reason or another. And if we don't behave, we're going to be fined. But we have to pay our rents, and more rents seem to come up every day. And nobody has any clue of how to stop it. I wonder, they talk tough in Europe about doing something for Ukraine, but Ukraine's not in the EU right now. Whether it wants to be or not is irrelevant. It's just not. It's a border nation with Russia, so it is what it is. And it's not in the EU. And Russia hasn't attacked the EU or NATO, because it's not in NATO, but anyway, nobody wants peace, so they talk tough. Germany had to deindustrialize because energy costs are too high now, and materials. Because before they had a flow of trade going from China through Russia all the way through Ukraine and Eastern Europe, Belarus and wherever, and you had these material flows, stocks and flows, systems theory, and you could make stuff and sell stuff. You make a car and you sell it to someone in Beijing who wants a prestigious car. Now they can't do that anymore. China doesn't care. They'll make their own cool cars now. They don't care. They've leapfrogged the West. It's just absurd. I mean, it's a continent, right? I mean, you have the oceans, and Britannia rules the waves, and America rules the waves with its aircraft carriers and nuclear submarines. But, you have this big continent that goes from the Atlantic all the way to the Pacific, to Japan and China. And we can't trade. We can't just live in peace and get on with doing things that we need to do to maintain the health of our ecosystem and our species for posterity. We're going to instead invest all of our precious limited resources and materials and people's lives into war. It's just ridiculous. I don't think Trump does anything for good reason. He's an opportunist, and he's a business person. He wants to win. He's a narcissist, whatever. But, he wants to be treated as the most powerful person in the world. That's all he cares about. And there are people now behind him that are too clever by half, that actually have some ideas, however twisted and malformed. But they're able to tell Don, what's what, how it goes, and he's able to wield power, which says something. This is why when the reactionaries talk about power, they know what they're talking about. Once you get it, you have to use it, wield it, otherwise it's worthless. And they definitely do, and they are. And what comes of it, we'll find out. You can't help but find out, because there are consequences for everything that's being done now. Can't stand the media. All of it's just horrific. Euronews, it sounds like propaganda to me. France 24 sounds like propaganda to me. All of it. The American news is ridiculous. And when you watch ABC or something, it's all storms, and it just doesn't. Looks like God's pissed off at America, but as long as your team is in the White House, you don't care, right? But people are suffering and getting hit, and you have these storms that hit Carolina, and then after that you have fires and tornadoes. It just never ends. And all these aviation mishaps. I don't know. Is it like you go back and try to look at the history of aviation mishaps, and it seems like they're up. And I don't know, causation and correlation and causation. I don't know if Boeing being allowed more self-regulatory freedom is contributing to this or not, or other, air traffic controllers or whatever. But it does seem to me like we've lost the plot. We don't understand how important institutional expertise is and best practices are, standards of care. A good editor at a good newspaper who, with lots of experience, who understands what's going on and can work hard to produce good informational product. It doesn't matter now. I can just sit here and talk all day. If one or two people listen to me, that's what it is. But other people are talking all day. They have big audiences. They don't necessarily have any expertise or deep knowledge in a subject. Citizen journalists, whether it's somebody like Jordan Peterson or Eric Weinstein or whoever you want to choose around the world, there's goofballs everywhere. But if they're articulate and they can tell a good story and they're emphatic about it, people will listen to them. Hey, buddy, you want to go out? Popsy. Pops. This is Pops. I introduce you to Pop Pop. This is Popsy. I call him Pop Pop, Popeye, Popsicle, Popsicle Toes, Pop Pop, Popmeister. He's the most cool, relaxed, easygoing cat. And I love it. So anyhow, and the way that propaganda works, I'm not going to go into that because it's a huge thing. I mean, there are lots of books about it, but just the technical aspects of it, making a dozen, 100 websites to test words and images and see what flies and weasel your way into the narrative and gain eyeballs and change attitudes and move the Overton window and all this stuff. There are so many good tools that are available to anyone now, relatively cheap or dirt cheap or free, that can allow anyone to become an incredible, powerful propagandist. People talk about Russian troll farms and Chinese troll farms. What about all the other ones? It's not like America didn't invent the whole damn game. And they were always better at it than the Soviets, for example. The Germans were pretty good. The Nazi Germany was pretty good at it, propaganda. But it didn't fly for everyone, right? Eventually people can see through the BS. And sometimes they have enough of an established truth culture to fight back against this stuff. Other times they don't. They just go along with it. Because if you don't go along with it, you're going to die. You're going to lose your job. You're going to be treated like shit, and you're going to die. And, that happens to whistleblowers all the time. And during the, 2008 financial crisis, nobody was listening to the whistleblowers for years and years, over a decade. And more than that, really, if you want to go back, Dodd-Frank or, before Clinton or things like that. Or if you want to go back to FDR and his regulatory policies, or back to the robber barons at the turn of the 20th century. It just amazes me even like talking about the Knights Templars and the old insurance business during the Age of Discovery and whatnot, or not the Age of Discovery, but when everyone was just starting to sail around the planet and the Europeans and claim everything. I put my flag here, we own it, and there's privateers, and we can rob your ships, and we have, they're fighting among themselves and carving up the world, and we never stopped doing that, right? So after World War II, a lot of these borders in the Middle East were just drawn, all the borders in Africa were just drawn by Europeans, and not taking anything into account like culture and so on. And I'm not a big... look, all cultures are different and so on, and that matters because culture is a really deep thing. But I'm not a cultural relativist in an absolute sense. It's all relative, dude, female genital, cutting is just part of their culture. You can demonstrably prove that it's not good for women, that it's unhealthy. And you can demonstrably prove certain kinds of misogyny and how women are treated and so on. And people fight for rights and a better situation over decades and hundreds of years, and then they get a little foothold and they start to move forward. Maybe we call that progress, maybe not. And then it all falls back again when the other faction gets in charge. So Afghanistan had a moment of fresh air, but America wanted it to be a presidency instead of a parliamentary system, and that doesn't work presidency doesn't work too well in a tribal country with all these different languages and tribal groups and so on. But it decides it knows better. That's another thing about colonialists and Europeans. We know better, okay? We are superior, we're supreme, we're the best, we're the smartest, our culture's the best, our religion's the best. Scholars do heavy work trying to prove whether the 7 letters of Paul, the Apostle Paul, are real or not. And sometimes they come up with really good arguments that are debated for a long time and looked into deeply, that they're not, that Paul didn't write any of the letters. But, there you go. You're talking about Paul's letters. And meanwhile, we have genocide going on in the world right now. But it's a big deal. Everyone's excited about it. And of course, Christianity, Western Christianity, is the best and the only real religion in the world. But other religious people say the same thing about theirs. And then Europe has a 30 years war over religion. You have all this turmoil, the Catholic Church, the Holy Roman Empire, the Protestant Church, the various different kinds of Protestant Church, prosperity gospel, evangelism, Christian Zionism, blah, blah, blah. It's just crazy. And everybody just takes it for granted that everything they believe is true and fit for purpose and not going to cause any trouble. And it's truly frustrating when you've read a lot and thought about things over decades. Oh my God. And you're thinking, no, we're never going to get it, ever. So the kids nowadays, the young people, they're very bright, smart. They know what's going on, but they can't do anything. They have no power. And they get so much dopamine, endocrine hits from just being on Instagram and TikTok and getting a lot of attention, speaking the truth in funny ways, or going off on tirades and little short ones that people can quickly flick through. It's so exciting just being the center of attention that, that's enough. I'm speaking truth to power. I'm telling the truth. We at this channel, we at that channel. And everybody's got their little thing going on. And so we can't get together face to face and work out how we're going to establish, a truth culture, a reality-based culture, an evidence-based culture, or anything like this. Again, we just don't have a clue how to do it. And we're not going to sacrifice for it because life's too fun right now, especially in wealthy countries. When I go to places in Europe, and it just seems like things are so good, it's just like, wow, some places are really good, some aren't, but I can imagine people in the States as well. You look around at all the wealth and the big buildings and the football stadiums and the ice hockey rinks and all the universities and stuff. Now they're trying to tear it all down because they want to do something else, but I'm not clear as to what it is they want to do. The people in power now, they're the minions. The people in power, the players are always the same clique. They own the capital and the resources, and they control the narrative to a large extent. Jeff Bezos buys the Washington Post for a reason, and now he's not going to publish things about certain things. Verboten, off limits. We're going to talk about libertarian stuff or whatever it is. So there, the Washington Post is telling you it's not a real newspaper anymore. It's just a propaganda arm of a billionaire. And of course, we've had a lot of that from the very beginning. What are you going to spend your ink on? And obviously executives and owners would have something to say about that. And you have different kinds of owners. Some care more about the truth than others. And some have their own agendas. And so it's always been like that. Since we had the printing press and, published the God's word in your language, whatever. My God, I'm telling you, people still have faith in these outlets, and the way I see it now, it's just incredibly propagandistic. A lot of PR, a lot of spin, a lot of BS, a lot of narrative magic, just trying to keep your attention, hold your attention, keep your outrage level high, and keep you from really thinking deeply about anything while they rob you. Follow that little laser pointer, and I'm going to rob you while you're paying attention to this little thing over here. Yeah, so that was a good article, and this other one from Counterpunch talks about Trump and the conservative U.S. counter-revolution, and that's a good long article talking about the history of their revolution. And it's insightful, but there's lots of information like this out there, and we just, for some reason, don't care about it that much. It's not that exciting to us. Why talk about the news? Who cares? What the fuck is wrong with me? If the lights go out and there's no more of this anymore, I don't think it's going to hurt anybody that much. We'll figure out how to live together in smaller communities again. At some point, it's going to happen anyway, because we're not really looking at how to sustain and develop in ways that are conducive to our long-term survival. We're accelerating. And of course, if you believe in the transhumanism and all that kind of thing, you're fine with it because you want to be a machine. So you can't wait till that happens, and that's okay. We'll see. But this stuff that I'm seeing in the States in politics and the President Trump, it's surreal. It's like a comedy. It's theater of the absurd. It's truly madhouse stuff. And everybody's so completely committed to it in a self-righteous way. And, America's number one. All you have to do is chant USA loud enough and long enough, and the whole world just comes aright, So I don't know. I don't think it's going to work, folks. And I wish people would read a lot and go to their communities and beg a few people to come together and talk about what needs to be done. And you have to establish some reality-based culture. You know how nature works. You have to understand biology and systems. You have to understand, ecosystems and things. You have to understand material flows, stocks and flows, all that kind of stuff. Energy. A lot of people, they just don't care about it, right? Because we all believe in perpetual motion machines. We just want it to work out. We want to have faith. We want to have hope. And if you talk about anything that's really, really bad, you're an alarmist, a doomer. You're just trying to screw people's lives up by telling them the truth. And the truth is, in your own life, close to home, when the hurricane or the tornado hits, you can't ignore it. It is what it is. You can call it an act of God. But when you lose your mortgage, in the mortgage crisis, you lose your home. All these things that are happening around the world, when Ukrainian soldiers are dying every day and Russian soldiers, and the answer is just to fuel it longer. It doesn't seem like Europe could produce enough stuff to keep the war going on that much longer. But if they did, what does the world get out of it? You kill one leader, humiliate them, the whole cycle just starts over again. You have bad blood. People are mad at each other. And what America hopes to do every time is nation build. They're going to see that U.S. financialized, anarcho-capitalism or whatever. Rules-based order is just the best thing since sliced bread. They're going to come around. They'll see, once they see how good our washing machines are. Japanese washing machines are. They're going to get it. Chinese white goods. Once they see how good those Chinese drones are, they're going to come around to America's way of doing things. And, already Moscow and big cities, not in the countryside, it's the same here. There was wealth and stability and law and order, and people were happy and having fun. And there were gay bars in St. Petersburg and Moscow. But, obviously it's not like that all over Siberia from north to south. There are other parts of the country that are simpler, less wealthy. But that doesn't mean the people are all miserable. Portugal's a fairly simple place, really. There's nothing fancy here. It's just a beautiful country with a lot of nice, orchards and stuff. And people are just chill because they don't need that much, If you're in the big city, you got to be a gangster because you need a lot of money and power to be a player in the big city. Connections, networks. You got to have your people, your soldiers, You got to have your lawyers, your suits, accountants, think tanks. Got to have all this stuff going for you. I got my people. They got my back. It's gangsterism on steroids, but we don't think so. We watch Suits on TV and go, wow, that's intense, man. Being a corporate lawyer is really brutal. Ooh, the competition, man. These people really want to win. They're winners. And we get all excited about it. Billions. And that's just so much fun. And the fantasy is enough for us. As long as we have our entertainments, we're going to be passive. And that's good. All right, folks, so I hope your dreams come true and have a nice day. William T. out.